Hi guys, welcome to another episode. Today we're going to talk about controlling a pattern of 6 strokes with our feet and playing all the subdivisions with our hands on top of that. The subdivisions, I call them the alphabet because we're going to go through almost all the possible accents that we can play on top of this pattern so that we learn to control this pattern and be free to improvise and play anything we want on top of this. We're gonna start working on the technique first because that's always the most important thing to figure out before getting into an exercise, in my opinion, so that while we then increase the speed or go in the exercise, we don't have any issues of playing, of not being able to actually do certain motions that will allow us to play and execute this exercise, and in the future to just be free to play it, and not just mechanically as an exercise, but with the freedom and control of having a groove and dynamics and all that stuff. And we can only do that thanks to the technique, if we have a good technique behind it that supports our playing. So we can play different patterns with our feet. Today I'm going to demonstrate the paradiddle pattern with my feet, which is composed from singles and doubles, as we all know. And I'm going to play the singles with only a leg motion because even if we speed this pattern up a lot, it still won't be as fast as when we play very fast drumming, like metal drumming or anything like that. So we don't need our ankles to control the motion, but it will always be leg motion for singles, which it's pretty easy. But then the double stroke, I will the way I play it's with the slide technique, which it's what I prefer and I like to use, and I always say this in all the videos, but it's good that we keep track of that. The slide technique is a good double stroke technique, in my opinion, because it gives me a good power on both strokes, so I don't have one stroke louder than the other or anything like that. And also it allows me to keep a leg motion going, which allows me to stay in time better, and I don't have to start to think of multiple motions of the bigger muscles, because the bigger muscles are then what allow us to control timing and do the main motions. So I'll give you an example of the slide technique with my left foot so that you guys can see it better. And you can see how the leg motion will still be active and the main muscle to activate these strokes. So I'll switch from single strokes, leg motion, to double strokes so that you have this comparison. Okay, so as you can see, the leg motion, it's always going, and it's like if I'm still playing a single stroke, and that helps me with the timing. But the ankle, of course, when I do the double stroke, comes in and does this basically tap that allows me to play the second stroke, which is actually anticipates the leg motion stroke. So but I talk in the slide technique in another video more in depth, so you can check that out in case you want to have more information about this. But this is the way I'm going to work and perform the technique that I'm going to use to work and perform this pattern, which now I will break down and start playing it so that we see how the pattern is, and then we'll start adding all the other accents on top of it. So when we play the paradiddle or paradiddle, any paradiddle type of pattern, what happens is that we'll have two cycles, one starting with the right foot and one starting with the left foot, or one starting with the right part of our body and then the other one starting with the left one. So what will happen there is that it's like we have to switch the control from a right foot, in this case a right foot lead, to a left foot lead while we're playing everything on top of this. After a while that you start doing this, you'll get used to it, but at the beginning it can be kind of like weird and put you off a little bit while you're playing. So let's start putting the accents on top of the paradiddle diddle and start seeing how this sound and what kind of problems and what kind of things happen while we do this exercise. So, for example, already at this very first step of the exercise, I will notice several things. First of all, that of course the paradiddle diddle, it's a 6 strokes pattern, and I'm playing on top of this. Right now I was playing with a 4/4 pattern, so I was accenting one of every 4 strokes. So what happens here is that the cycle, it's already odd. It's not like a regular cycle. It does come back to a point where the one of the paradiddle, it's unison with the one of my hands, but basically the accent was shifting in the paradiddle diddle. So already here we have to start understanding how this shifting works. And we can start doing it by how we usually do, removing information and starting to understand where the accent falls. So playing the paradiddle diddle with our feet, let's start accenting only the one of every 4 of our hands. So in this way. Okay, so we understand that, for example, if we get rid of even other notes and we only play the right foot, it's going to be something like this. And then if we add the left foot, we're going to have a strong reference between our right foot and our right hand, so we can start adding things, playing them in reference to our right part of the body. So okay, so conceptually, this is what's going to happen for all the other accents that we're going to play on top of this. So getting rid of notes and information to our brain will allow us to simplify whatever we're doing and control it, and it will make sense, because if not, we're just going to play automatically, unconsciously, whatever we're doing. Maybe we also do the right things, like we play it in the right way, but we don't control it. It's not in our brain, it's not in our system, and so it's just going to be something that we will be able to do in the exercise, but as we get out of the exercise, we won't control it, won't have the perfect control of it, and we won't be able to execute it freely and how we want. So we'll go now through all the accents so that you guys can hear how this all the exercise will sound, and then whenever we have any issues and any problem at all while we're practicing this, let's break it down. Let's start from the basic things, so the paradiddle diddle with our feet, and then whatever accent is giving us problem, let's get all the information off, so let's start playing only the accent, and if that's also too hard, let's get rid of the left foot, and so on. Another suggestion that I give you before showing the exercise is to use different instruments while we're practicing this, because it will help us to make sure that we're playing everything in the right way, and it's not just going to be a bunch of notes that they're almost where they should be. But for example, I will play my right hand accent on the floor tom, left hand accent on the rack tom, and all the other taps on the snare, and then with my feet I mounted a little snare drum so that I have two different sounds from the kick, which is going to be my right part, and the snare with my foot, which is going to be the left part. So this will divide completely the sound of what I'm gonna hear while I play this, and it will be a little bit harder at first because having so many sounds that to control and that are going on, it's kind of confusing sometimes. But then in the long run, this will help you guys and make sure that what you're playing is exact and not random things, and it's not only single strokes, and that the double strokes are in the right place, and so on. So I really suggest you to do that. Now let's get into the exercise and see how this sounds from the beginning to the end. So basically what I did with my hands on top of the paradiddle diddle on my feet was accenting the first 16 notes, then the second, then the third, and the fourth, then 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 1, then 1, 3, and then 2 and 4. Then I went to playing 3 on top of 6, so accenting the 1 and the 3, so I'm kind of it's not a triplet, but it's like 3 on 4, 3 on 6 in this case, then 5 tuplets, then 6 tuplets, so 6 on top of 6, and then 7. So basically the accents gets wider and wider, and so the cycles becomes larger and larger and longer. So we have to, the more we go on in the exercise, the more we have to learn how to control these circles going one around each other. So that's the hard part of the exercise, but as I was explaining before, we can get rid of information when we get stuck somewhere and just concentrate and understand where the accents fall. It's important to develop listening control of this, so knowing how these pattern sounds on top of each other, we can sing them out and understand that. And it's very important to have these kind of things in our head, because once you know how it sounds, you already can control it much better. And then when you do this with all the other accents, it will be the same. And then the second thing we have to learn to control, it's the physical control of what we're doing. So where the accents fall in reference to what we're playing with our feet. And that's something that we do by getting rid of all the notes that we're playing and just understanding where these accents fall based on either the old pattern with our feet or just the right foot or whatever we're able to control. So it can be the left foot if you're left-handed and play, in a left-handed way. But whatever feels comfortable as a starting point, it's good to start from there and then develop everything else around it. So, because if not, it's going to be too many notes, too many informations going on, not even being always regular. So it's just going to make it so hard. Instead, in this way, we're going to save a lot of time. It's going to make sense way sooner, and we'll be able to play it in a matter of days instead of months. So in my opinion, this is a very good approach of independence, as I showed in the other videos. And the final goal of this is to then shift and change the pattern with our feet. We can play one single for one single right foot, one single left foot, then double with right foot, double with left foot, so something like this. Or the other way around. Speed it up. And so on. And play all the accents on top of this, which it's still going to be a 6 notes pattern with our feet, so it's going to still sound the same, but we're gonna physically play it in a different way. So we'll make it a little bit harder, or anyway, we'll put some variations to learn this, so that we really get comfortable in playing this kind of things in many different ways. And then after this is to start improvising, so getting rid of the exercise itself, but start grooving around the 6-stoplet, the 6 strokes pattern, and then starting to play fills and create a musical sense in what we're doing. So something like this, for example. Okay, so the final goal is, of course, to have a musical idea and a musical ability of applying these kind of things, even though these kind of exercises are also good to just raise our bar in our playing, just push ourselves in another dimension as far as independence, so that we're just then able to hear these kind of things, and we can play some of those and not eventually having to put them in our music. But so it's not like, oh, I don't play these kind of things in my music, so I don't need these exercises. That's not eventually true, because these exercises can unlock a world for maybe a very simple thing in a completely other kind of music, and that happened to me. And also it just creates more muscular connection to our brain, and so it just develops a lot of things and our intelligence on the drums. So I really suggest to really embrace these kind of exercises and just try them out and see if this benefits our playing somehow. And of course, then let's have fun with it, and let's just be creative and try to do as many solutions as possible and come up with many ideas as possible. And have a good practice, and I'll see you next time.